Okay, so how do you begin to pick music for a ballet, for Aladdin specifically? Were there certain composers that came to mind, certain ballets that come to mind? Like, how do you put together an hour-long piece of music to go with the ballet?
This is excellent question because I think I look back at the selection Miss Marty made for so many of the ballets and using different classical composers who composed for ballet specifically, and music that was sometimes familiar and sometimes was not. So both of those play a part. Carl Davis, great composer, created a whole score for the ballet of Aladdin, and many professional companies like Houston Ballet use this score. And so was able to download that music to get that and really listen to it. There's so much music there. It's closer to the original story, so it's meant for a couple of hours. So I went through and I said, well, what do I really like first? And I wrote those things down. And then what sounded too familiar to something else, maybe like from a movie score or something like that. And I was like, no, we're not going to use that because I don't want to remind the audience of another production that's not Aladdin. And then immediately as I was listening to it and just knowing the setting being Middle Eastern, India, China, La Bayadere came to mind, which is a great ballet set in India. The composer is Minkus, and it's like they really fit really well together. So you'll hear some music by the composer Minkus, and then also decided to use a little bit from Scheherazade with Rimsky-Korsakov. So that is beautiful. So there'd be snippets there, and then listening to them in order that they would actually be played. So what will I actually hear? Does this piece transition well into the next piece? Because sometimes you'll have a great playlist, but you don't have a good smooth transition into the next one. So that was really important of getting the music just so it's a good smooth transition so you don't feel jarred like you have switch composers right away. You want it to be really fluid.
And then to gel with the actual storyline too.
Exactly. It's got to fit the storyline. If it's too sad for this moment, we can't use it. Right? We've got to use something a little bit happier, brighter, or thinking about especially the little kids too, the creative in Ballet One, being flamingos and parrots. What is going to be, what will sound joyful but youthful, right? They wouldn't necessarily get a piece of music that maybe Princess Amira and Aladdin would dance to that has a little bit more body and depth and maturity to it. They need something a little bit more lighthearted that represents a young student instead of something of a more mature student or an adult. So yeah, keeping all those things in mind.
So much has to gel together to make this one whole ballet so cohesive.
Right.
And like when you put the music to the storyline, does it just give you all the feels like, okay, now this is it?
Surprisingly, it happened sooner than I thought. Because I thought it was going to be such a long process. Looking at Miss Marty's work in years past, it looks overwhelming. It really does. It looks daunting. It's like, how did she get all this music and edit it and know what would flow well together? But then as you start to get into it and you know the story you need to tell, you kind of know what you're listening for. What am I listening for that'll tell the story? And so that helped a lot. And a lot of times I like to tell people, if I can visualize the production, if I can actually see it, then I know we're going to have a good production. If I cannot visualize it, I'm not so sure. So it did give me, in that way, like you said, the feels. I could visualize it early on as I was listening, not even maybe to the first 10 pieces of music. I could see it unfolding on the stage, and I was like, this is it. This is working. This is the path to take. So yeah, that's how we got there. I'm excited about it too.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Yeah. It's just going to be such a beautiful...
It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
A new venture.